Welcome, you eight. We're going to do a little, quick video on the cell, because the cell is going to be behind all the work we do this term looking at body systems. So, without further ado, we have this idea about cells, and the cell theory in biology, and biology is all about cells, is that they are the basic functional unit of life, of living things. Everything that is alive is made of cells, and all new cells come from pre-existing cells. So therefore the cell is the smallest living organisational unit. I won't go on about Schwann, Schleiden and Virchow, but they're the guys who drew together all the information that was known back in the, probably 1800s or late 1700s and put this theory forward. Before that, we didn't really understand the cells or how life came about, to be honest. Historically, the first cells were these things, these prokaryotic cells. They're reasonably simple. Now I'll gloss over most of this detail because it's not what we really need, but you can see this blue stuff's their DNA. It's just sloshing about in the middle of the cell. No real organisation. It's got a cell wall around the outside there and a membrane inside that. But otherwise, there's no what we call organelles. Really simple things. Bacteria are prokaryotic. Their cells are made of prokaryotic types. Whereas our cells are much more complex. So our cells are what we call eukaryotic. And we have our DNA hidden away inside here in this wonderful nucleus, surrounded by endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi apparatus and mitochondria and all these organelles, all these bits of the cell that have a particular job to do. So our cells evolved out of the prokaryotic cells, so an evolutionary step. And they're small. They're really small. So here's a bacteria, a prokaryotic cell. We've got a virus there, and then these organelles are about this big. And there's a eukaryotic cell, so larger than a bacterial cell, bigger obviously than organelles, much bigger than viruses, which aren't living, but not able to be seen by the eye. So we're talking about really small. And apparently you're made of about 37 trillion of them. That's a lot of cells. Now, the cell is made up of lots of different things called organelles. And the first one, the most important one in some ways, I suppose, is the cell membrane, and it wraps around the cell and keeps everything inside it. It's made of lipids, so fats, with lots of proteins and carbohydrates all embedded in it. Later on, when you come back and do year 10 biology with me, we'll go into a lot more detail about this, but for the time being, the cell membrane, really important, controls what comes into the cell and what leaves the cell. The nucleus, we're looking at the cytoplasm, aren't we? The cytoplasm, or cytosol, is this stuff around inside the cell, not the nucleus, but everything else. So it's sort of the fluid that fills it up. It's like a jelly. And so things can move through that. Chemicals can move through it. The nucleus is one of those really important parts because it contains the information that just determines who you are and how you operate. There's about 30,000 genes embedded on, in our case, 46 chromosomes, and they make 30,000 proteins, and those proteins determine how tall you are, what colour your skin is, what colour your hair is, how you digest food, probably when you die, all sorts of things. Also how your brain works. There's a lot of other stuff goes on as well, but at the base level, those proteins are working all that sort of gear out. The ribosomes are tiny little things that take information from take the gene, information from the gene, and turn into a protein, or start the process of turning into a protein. That continues in the endoplasmic reticulum, which are big folded membranes wrapped around the nucleus. And then the Golgi apparatus can take some of these proteins and create little vesicles in terms of the membrane for export out of the cell. And then these vesicles are these little parts of the membrane, same tissue as the membrane, and they go to the membrane, join it, and release the chemical outside the cell. The mitochondria is a really important organelle. It takes the glucose you eat and breaks it down to release energy as a thing called adenosine triphosphate. The old mitochondria was once a prokaryote. So it's a bacteria living inside your cells. Lysosomes are found in animal cells, and they often collect all the chemicals or toxic material the cell can't deal with and store them, but they're also used for killing the cell. Your cell has a certain life, about 32 copies and they die. And these lysosomes are part of that process of killing the cell when it's time. Chloroplasts, again, are a prokaryotic cell living inside plant cells. And the chloroplast is where we find chlorophyll. So this is where photosynthesis takes place, where plants transform light energy into chemical stored energy, glucose. The vacuole, this is this bit here, big, large part of the plant cell, full of water, puts pressure back on the cell's walls to give it nice structure, and stores stuff for the cell. So plants and animals have a number of similarities. Most of the organelles are found in both. But when you look at a plant, there are three distinct things. They've got a cell wall, a hard cell wall on the outside, got that large vacuole, and of course got chloroplasts, which are really important. And the last thing to think about before we stop this little slideshow, and my head's in the way, so I'll get myself out of the way there. Cells are the basic unit of life. Tissues are many cells joined together. So one of the common one is our skin. It's an epithelial layer of tissue. They have a particular function, controlling stuff coming in and out of our bodies. Organs are then many tissues joined together to form a job, to do a job. Systems are then many organs joined together to do a job. And of course, the organism is simply a combination of many systems whose job really is to make sure that all the cells that make up that body get what they need for life. And we're going to have a look at this term at three of them: respiration, circulation, and digestion. But I just hope that little bit of background is useful for you.